No, let's send one out.
All right.
All right, so we're live now. Once again, this is one of our first planning sessions for the Walk My World project. Basically, Walk My World is an open learning, open research, in many ways an open publishing project. This is, I think this is our third year of doing this, or fourth? Sue, how far are we?
This would be our third year of Walk My World in its current
This is
iteration,
our third one.
but like our eighth, like in a long line of projects. So yeah, this is this version 2.0. Yeah, it's the third one, we'll say.
So this is our third version. Basically, what we do is we try to have these open hangouts to talk about the research and talk about why we're here and what we'd like to see happen with Walk My World. It's not messy, it's not pretty. Well, it is messy and it's not pretty, but it's a way for us to show what research could and should be, and we try to be as open as possible and document it through these different meetings. So to get us all started, want to just do introductions real quickly and have people talk about why they're here. My name's Ian O'Byrne. I'm from the College of Charleston. And let's get started. Cassie, tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your interests are.
Great. So my name is Cassie again, and I am from Michigan State University. I am a PhD student there, and I'm representing myself as well as my colleague and friend John Wargo. Together, we're really interested in thinking about developing an open network of sounds, similar in some ways to Walk My World. So learning along from all of you about how you manage things and do different things as we work to develop like an open network of sounds, and thinking about soundscapes as a tool for composing and attuning to difference in some different ways. So thanks for letting me join you.
Very cool. What's the hashtag and what's the name of the...
Yes, I'm so bad at this. Thank goodness you're here. Hashtag Hear My Home, and for those who are on the call, I emailed out a flyer, but we are also on Twitter and Instagram with @HearMyHome for Instagram and @HearMyHome2016 for Twitter.
Very cool. Greg, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is, hey everybody, my name is Gregory. I'm at Southern Connecticut State University, and I have been involved in Walk My World with Ian and Sue and everybody pretty much from the beginning. For a super quick brief history lesson with this, we started this just because we couldn't get people at NCTE to go to technology sessions, so we started doing poetry sessions that were technology, really, and that has evolved into what Walk My World is. And so this is our fun first planning meeting, looking forward to kind of shaping our theme and figuring that out, so I'm excited.
Very cool. Julie Wise.
Hi, I'm Julie Wise. I am a PhD student at the University of Delaware, and my current focus is using digital mentor texts to teach students how to write evidence-based arguments, and then hopefully transfer that into how multiple modes can be used to convey an effective evidence-based argument.
Very cool. Kate Booth.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm from Coffs Harbour on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, Australia. And I'm a teacher, a public school teacher, and I have a Year 2 class next year. So what will be wonderful is that quite a few of them are my students from this year. So they'll be involved in their second Walk My World, hopefully. We'll see what comes out of this. But my interest was seeing how I could have young students, 7, 8, or even up to year 6 here in Australia, transfer understanding with Walk My World texts and see what they could do with it. So I've loved it, and that's why I'm really keen for a second run of it. Thanks.
Hopefully this year I will do the project with some of my students. I will also do a couple high school students, but then a group of 5th grade students. And I'm only willing to try and do that because I've seen Kate do it for 2 years now. So, Nicole Wang.
Yes. Hi, so I'm Nicole, and I am a PhD student from Penn State University. My interest is more on like the MOOCs and how to actually engage students in terms of like how to learn better and how to complete the course, etc. And also I'm interested in like how to utilize media as a tool to engage students in learning. That's it.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Loomis. I'm a PhD student at Georgia State University. Um, I'm a grandma, but you didn't hear that. So I'm frantically cleaning house because the family's all coming over tomorrow. My interests primarily are in teaching composition and using digital media as a tool for teaching composition. And so I've had some good fun with it. This is my third go-round. First I was a participant, and last year I helped organize, and I'm back this year, and I will have all of my high school students doing Walk My World. Thank you for providing lesson plans for me for 10 weeks next semester.
Not a problem. Sue Ringler-Pitt.
Hi, I'm Sue from, I'm an assistant professor at Central Connecticut State University right now, and I teach literacy courses there. I've taught content area literacy and secondary literacy, but right now I'm working with elementary teacher candidates. So I'm not exactly sure whether I'm going to use Walk My World this semester in my classes, but I am the grandmother of Walk My World that I've been around since the beginning. So in the third iteration, I've gone through teaching grad students in a multicultural education course and really getting connected to the identity and walking in each other's worlds aspect of this project first year. The second year, I was teaching a language development class and was very interested in the notion of online language development as it relates to regular or physical language development of human beings. So I got very connected through this project with Stephanie Loomis, and so I'm going to be working with her. Next semester, we started one project, and we're going to continue, and I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, so we will keep you posted.
Figured out on the way. We're making it up as we go along. Last but not least, Carolina, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi everybody, I'm Carolina. I am from Argentina, so you can see the difference in weather. We're in the middle of the summer here, so I'm sorry if I cause any envy, but it's really very warm here. I graduated as a PhD in adult learning, and here in Argentina, I am working in a teacher training college, training teachers that are going to learn like the equivalent of TESOL in the States, and also I'm working in a technology and learning class. And last semester, I used one of the iterations of the Walk My World project, and there were some things that didn't work because of the culture that were very interesting when I was talking to Ian. And by the way, I got to know some of you and heard about you through Ian, so thank you very much for giving me the chance to work together. And one of my goals is to try to use this project that seems to be very, and I quote, simple, but it's very complex in many, many ways, so that people can be less afraid of technology, especially future teachers. So there is a lot of potential that I think that we can work through and play. So that's why I want to see what is it that we can share and we can learn from each other. So and I'm a very, very big team player, so I'm very flexible. So
very cool.
Thank you.
It's good to have you in. So one of the things that we wanted to do today is figure out what to do for the upcoming year. But perhaps what we can do is start by thinking about what happened last year, what worked and what didn't work. You know, as Carolina said, that there was, you know, we tried to make this as approachable as possible. But even then, you know, it was still a challenge for many of us. So those of us that, you know, were in the project last year, let's have some open conversation about things that worked or didn't work or resonated for you or didn't quite resonate based upon what happened last year. And maybe that'll lead us to what we'd like to do this year.
Identity really seemed to be a strong theme.
Mm-hmm.
People liked playing with this idea of, because a lot of we had so many pre-service teachers, so that was that, and even with Kate students too, with when they're doing their work with the tattoos and their parents. That was, I think, a common theme, but then also just the. Ian, are you frozen? I think we lost Ian. Or am I frozen?
You're good.
Open.
All right, you're moving now. So I thought that worked well. Those are my 2 cents to date. In terms of this coming theme, I don't know. I was thinking digital storytelling, playing with that remixing, playing with argumenting, or like a social justice kind of project. I really have no ideas for the theme for this year's Walk My World.
Maybe before we, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe before we talk about its theme, Ian asked a good question, like what's gone well and what's maybe not gone so well. And moving from year 1 to year 2, we made some really good changes that might be useful to share with folks in terms of kind of what was offered online. And I think that was a real positive move where I guess my sense is that we moved from something that we didn't even have a name for, which is now called a learning event, right? The 10 learning events. And we also moved second year to making it that you could kind of join in at any time along the way. So this notion of what we're now, I think, calling, all of us might be calling a mentored open online community does relate to MOOCs, which is what, sorry, I can't remember her name, Nicole said she was interested in, but sort of an alternative type of MOOC. So we might be sort of saying, what is it going to look like this year? We gathered it into kind of handleable learning events that were described. There were a lot of choice, but there was also a lot of things designated that you could see from week to week if you'd want to join in. Maybe we could discuss that, how it should look online and who, what are we going to call it? Is it like the MOOC? Is it MOOC-like, or is it just kind of Twitter-like? I'll shut up. I'm sorry. But,
Well, year 1 we had, we started this by looking at learning events, and we had it linked to poetry. Moving to last year, we said that maybe we don't want to have it focused on just poetry. We wanted to have it be a little bit more inclusive for all different forms of students. One of the challenges that we had was that, and I was talking with Cassie about this, that embedded in all of this, there is a certain amount of identity. And as you have students tweet or create online, they're creating their identity, for better or worse. And so that was a challenge. And so we had to teach people how to use the tools, but then also unpack identity. And so it seems like last year the theme was just identity. But then that brought its own challenges out. One other way that we tried to change last year is that we wanted to have more connection. So this goes along with Nicole's question. We wanted to have people connecting throughout the MOOC, and so that's why I think Learning Event 2, we had people immediately reach out and do like a virtual high five or whatever like that, and that worked or didn't work. So that was one of the challenges that we had, getting people to connect with each other. Carolina, you had questions earlier about identity and digital identity and the challenges with that. You want to speak more about that?
Well, actually, learning event number 2 didn't work out very well for us, just and simply because my students didn't know what hi-fi was. It was like, and what do you do with this? And it was an interesting thing because for you it's very common. It's like, oh yes, it went well, high five. And I lived in in the States for 10 years. So for me it was really a very interesting thing to hear them not relating to it. But on the other hand, I think that it's also a way of giving people the opportunity to learn how other people relate in other culture. And so instead of just having one dominant culture, we could have like different greetings or way of saying things that can be representative of other cultures, just as an example. But on the other hand, one of my research projects that I am part of, I mean, I didn't choose it, is like, you have to do this. It's a long story. It has to do with online identity. So whatever you want to research about online identity, I really want to work with that. So that's my 2 cents.
We also, I mean, one of the things that you and I talked about in other conversations is the challenge of not only do certain words resonate or not resonate across cultures, but you know, there's certain things I can do and say, you know, or there's certain things I try to do online where people say to me, well, yeah, you do these things because you're brave, or you have an online open identity because you are whatever, you don't care, or you know you have no self-esteem, or you have a lot of self-esteem, one way or the other. But that's not true for everybody. So we're asking people to go openly share stuff online. Maybe everyone isn't as brave, or maybe they live in a situation where they can't really go openly share stuff online. And what are the challenges with that?
Yeah, I think that if I can just complete the idea, we have just had a change of government. The government changed on the 10th of December, and before that we have had 8 years of a woman that she called herself a very democratic leader, but if you posted or tweeted anything that went against the government, you were called traitor. You would have just to give you the equivalent of the IRS going to your house and search whether you are whether you have paid your taxes. I mean, it was a very, very horrible situation. So this thing of you can say whatever you wanted to say, I never thought that I wouldn't be able to do it here in Argentina. So now we're in a new country, in a new transition, and I don't know what's going to happen. We have a very different government, but we cannot take for granted that we can say whatever we want to say. That's for sure.
Kate, what do you think? What about differences between cultures and identity construction?
That's all quite heavy. I just have to say we constantly go through a change of government in Australia with our changing prime ministers, and it's a little bit embarrassing actually. And no, but I'm just making light of what's obviously very serious. Obviously, my children, for us, identity is a very strong theme. Australia, we the same as in America. I know you've got the humans of New York and whatever. We have a lot of refugee children. I have a lot of refugee children, quite a lot coming in from Burma, and we've got a big settlement coming in. Apparently getting a lot of students from Syria. Or our school is. Australia is very free. It really is. I'm very fortunate to live in this country, I think. But that said, I have to work, being a public school teacher, I work behind the Department of Education, so I'm a public servant. And the Department of Education is very, very strict on its guidelines on social media, using getting out there. That said, they've also dropped a lot of restraints since. So I use a blog, of course. I have a class blog. I have a class Twitter account. Obviously, the children can't hold Twitter accounts. But all of those now are registered. This happened towards the end of the year. We had to register them all with the department. That said, I'm just very careful, and I have permissions, obviously, from all my parents. It's a very in-depth letter that I write to the parents, explaining how their children, we're going to be using online social media with this project, and how we use it. We use it. Well, I used it this year a lot with my children. And I've said this before. I said this in last year's, it's so close to the new year, and I have just woken up. I've lost my train of thought. I need to have those permissions from the kids. I need to have the parents fully on board, understanding how we're going to use social media. With this project, but so far it's been very, very positive. Again, I'm in a very low socio-economic pulling an area school, so for a lot of literacy is extremely low, lower than probably one of the lowest areas in Australia. Yeah, they related to identity. Identity was really a good one for my kids. It's actually amazing. I'll say this, that what little children, we underestimate what they can understand, what they can grasp. And probably one of the big ones for my children that they loved was the Bones. Was it the video, the John Levitt? Was that right? And I think, yeah, that was the totem as well.
Yep.
But they loved that video. They still ask to watch it, and they love listening to the words. And anyway, yeah, it was really interesting. And yet, I dropped in with the the Robert Hass poetry. That was your first one, and I always talk about that one little kindergarten student, Rani, who really loved one of his poems. So yeah, but no, it was a good theme. It worked well. It was a challenge. Sure, it's a challenge for me, and also getting it passed, getting my peers, getting my assistant principal and my principal on board to let me run with it. We haven't, like anywhere I imagine, but a very packed curriculum, and honestly, finding the 40 minutes, well, my Walk My World sessions they became Wednesdays, basically. They would go into maths sessions. Yeah, because, having that, they just kind of took over, but it was great. I got, I think I was allowed a lot of freedom, and that was really encouraged. And even at the end of this year, I had my executive say to me that they've really, one of the things they've loved is the new projects that I bring into the school, or that what I've exposed the children to in terms, and anything to do with literacy. Anyway, multi-forms. Sorry, I'm rambling, and I will shut up. But the PhD student who's doing the sound escapes. I didn't write what was it? I wrote it down. Hear My Home. Already my brain was going, oh my gosh, doing something with soundscapes, linking that to poetry or something. Yeah, I really like the sound of that. Anyway.
That's what I said. As soon as Cassie and John come on here, all of a sudden, Walk My World is done. Now everybody's leaving. Looking at the chat.
Not our intent.
No. I think it's brilliant. Looking at the chat, a lot of people, culture and multicultural is resonating with people. Is that something that we want to explore? I see there's other stuff in the Google Doc, but what do people think? Stephanie, what do you think?
Part of the way I've been able to sell to my parents that this is a really cool idea is the authentic multicultural opportunities there are when you're interacting with people from other countries. Suddenly your world grows exponentially, and it's so much more effective than reading about Argentina or Australia in a book and saying, oh yeah, that's great. It's so much more fun and relevant for the students to interact with people who are actually in those other places. And I love this shared readings from your corner of the world. How cool would that be as an introductory learning event for all of the students to do something visually or with sound that's really a cultural introduction, but also personal. Because part of our identity is our culture. So I don't know, I love that part of it.
If I can say something too, I was just sitting here listening to everybody's ideas, and we have the identity thing and the multicultural, but I think we need to maybe make it even more specific than that. I was thinking like past my identity, past, present, future, or something, or do it with like family, student, my identity in my family, my identity as a student, my identity, with my friends or something, and then, of course, going along with this, different modes to be able to communicate. And maybe this is an opportunity to really start to teach what the different modes are and how the affordances of each mode. And, try something with just sound, like the Hear My Home, and what what meaning was made from it, and then do another one where you're just using visuals and no other, so how is that meaning when you're just using visuals versus when you're just using sound? And then of course you have your written language, and so you're having all of these different modes that were sort of, when I was working with my 5th graders, I really had to teach them about each one of the modes, and I was hoping to find, and obviously I still need to continue, but I was thinking that maybe there would be one mode that, because what I would do is I would show them digital video arguments, sort of like public service announcements or whatever, on like plastic microbeads, those little like things that are in like your hand sanitizer and stuff, and I said, so which mode were you drawn to? And I thought, we hear a lot about how each one of us has like a certain mode that we love, right? And as of right now, I haven't found one. It really was all about the content, and depending on what the content was and what the students picked up on content-wise was the mode that they were drawn to. So there wasn't just always a student who always only watched the visual and said that was the most effective mode, and then there was someone who just only listened to the oral and that was the most effective. Does that make sense?
I think that's really amazing, Julie, because we talk so much about the 6 language arts, however we want to put it, viewing, visually representing, reading, writing, speaking, listening. And I like your notion that if we're introducing learning events that bring students in different ways, it's not just that we offer different modes, but that people start to self-reflect on why they chose a specific mode to do a specific thing. In other words, how to communicate. And I think that kind of self-reflection is good for all ages. And I know right now that I can now do it with my teacher candidates. So suddenly, this is something that would be really important to teacher candidates. Because like you said, we talk about different learning styles, but some people get stuck on, okay, if this is a visual learner, then we should just give them visuals. But no, if we really find out why, then we can move them into the other modes. And so I think there's a lot of potential there that I'd be really excited about.
It's kind of cool because you said one of the things that we've talked about a couple times is possibly digital storytelling or like transmedia storytelling or digital narrative. And I like the idea about choice of modes and then having students explain why they chose a specific mode. It would be interesting to also have it be, as Julie said, like the story of the individual. We sort of had that at the end of last year, but we didn't flesh it out. Last year, through our choice of titles, we ended up with talking about, well, let's talk about our story together. And that's how we ended the learning events last year. We could have this whole year be a focus on like digital storytelling, identifying and understanding the different modes and why we're choosing them, and having that be something that somebody overtly states, but then at the same time talking about themselves and continuing to unpack identity and who they are and why they make those choices.
What is that thing?
Yeah, that's a nice thought, Sue. Sue put in the chat, come together as a multicultural online quilt at the end of it all. Cassie, what do you think?
I think that sounds super interesting. I like the idea of like having the modes. Last spring, John and I were teaching a senior level course, and we actually had them do reading responses using different modes. And so they had to do 10, but they got to choose between like the visual and an audio, a video, and then like a text-based one. And then they had 2 that were kind of their free choice. And so that's actually what I talked about a little bit at LRA, was just how it really illuminated who they were as people in a really different way, because we asked them to also think a little bit about how the modes like afforded them a different way to present themselves as teachers and as colleagues, and address some of the things that were given as like prompts within readings. So I think it would be a really interesting way to kind of go about that.
Nicole, Carolina?
I like the different options. I mean, the idea of digital storytelling sounds good. I also agree with Cassie in the sense that when you give people choices is something that people can relate to, especially if the choice is vary from very easy to more complex, because you always get a very interesting mix. So I think that this idea of digital storytelling with different modes is definitely something that I'm interested in, and of course the idea of identity.
I think I also agree with like giving people like a very different choice because so we did one class and it's kind of like the professor gave us like choices to do like you can write a paper or you can record yourself to do like a very brief introduction type of thing. And the majority of us did it like that's an article versus kind of like recording. So I feel like give them like choices would actually make them feel like more comfortable in terms of like posting stuff online too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would be interesting because then it would put like a stake in the ground as to many of us fight that battle where we see teachers, and then our colleagues that privilege one form of text over another, and we're trying to get people to write and express themselves in different modes. Many of us are working with pre-service teachers, and if we immediately had them start to think about what ways they could express themselves in different modes, and then more importantly, the why of each one, that would be kind of intriguing to push their thinking that way.
And I think it's really important to think about or ask if it's prospective teachers in particular, what are the affordances and the constraints of each mode? Because I think that, there's particular things that are beneficial in each of these different ways that you can produce your final product, and like the process allows you a different kind of thinking as you go about it too. So I think it's important to think about the process and the product and how like each of those provides different ways in and a different kind of work to really result. Or thinking to result from that.
I just had an interesting quick thought, just because I'm thinking about my own work with pre-service teachers, and something as simple as running a writing workshop in my class on the adult level or on the undergraduate level so that they can self-reflect on the process. So this sort of sounds like we could run it like it'll feel like an experiential workshop where you, in my sense, in my case, where the students would be doing it for themselves, but thinking about their students, their future students. And therefore, I guess my goal is we fit as many everyone's into this as possible. And I'm feeling like it's working for me for pre-service teachers, and I can picture it for young students, and I can picture it for people who are teaching high schoolers, as long as there's this self-reflective piece and why. Why are we using which mode? But we're really redefining text and communication.
I love the process and product piece. Sue, can you flesh that out a little bit more? Like, how would you see this working? How would you see it in happening this upcoming year?
You mean for me or for the for the whole group?
Yeah, what you just said. Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I think I have a lot of trouble reading this back channel and the doc at the same time because I'm old-fashioned. So that's part of the whole story, right? So the idea is I can see that Julie's trying to bring us to maybe something that's a little more organized, where we have. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Julie, but I kind of want to see a sense that what's online feels organized in terms of the learning events, because there's so much variation in terms of who's involved and where we are on the globe. So I'd like to see, 10 learning events where you take Greg's original idea from the second iteration, where there was low, medium, high, wasn't it, or something like that? And
I gave a low, medium. I gave a no tech, low tech, high tech option for.
Yeah, and I think it even doesn't have to be low tech or high tech, but it's different modes, and it might meet what Carolina's talking about. With there are choices and within each mode. But it might be cool if we were very organized in terms of this is sound week, this is representation week, this is, I don't know, I think Kate started that first year where, even the idea of bringing videos was so new, and now it's like a given, there'll be images and videos in there. So maybe just organizing by type of text with the notion that text is such a broad word. at this point. I know I talk about that in my class and make my students notice that the notion of text is everything from, print to dance. I don't know if I'm fleshing.
No, I think it's so. You brought up a really interesting question that I want to hold on to for a sec. Earlier in the discussion, we talked about culture and how important that was for us. How would we see culture being part of what we've talked about over the last 5-10 minutes?
Well, Greg put in the chat over here. He said, to explore digital tools to share who we are from the past, present, and future through multiple modalities. So we're still, anytime we're sharing who we are, I feel like we're sharing culturally who we are as, if I look at my past and I want to focus on, my German side, do you know what I mean? Or my Pennsylvania Dutch side, or, so that's going to bring that in. That's what I would say for culture. And anytime that we're sharing about who we are, I feel like that culture is going to come out.
Do we force the issue?
Maybe it's something. Do you guys all know the George Ella Lyon "Where I'm From" poem that everybody uses all over the place? I wonder if this is. Maybe you all don't, but it's it's been used a million times, and whenever I use it, my students are just completely floored by it. And it does just what Julie said, where it brings out whatever side of you you want, and it starts by listing. You start by sort of listing parts of your past, present, and future, and then you end up writing a poem. And of course, we're not looking for that poem product, but it might be that we're doing this in a larger scale, digitally, online, but it all starts with this George Ella Lyon, "Where I'm From." I can try to find that and send it to you, but it would bring in a lot more people because it's very famous.
In my house, it's Missy Elliott in the "Where They From." That's what we're all thinking about.
I don't know
I'll
that.
put it in the chat because I know as soon as I said it, you're like, I don't get it.
I just added on the chat the link to the poem as well.
Yeah.
And who said Sandy? She doesn't use punctuation. I can't remember who she's. She writes novels, but she has like short stories too. And there's one about how old she feels, or she's writing about this character. I don't. I'll have to look it up, but it's like some days I feel 10, and some days I feel 3, and some days I feel 25, but it's about like a 16-year-old kid or something. So that was one of the things that I wrote down too, like how old do you feel, because I think we all feel different ages compared to how we are really.
It's Sandra Cisneros that you're using.
Yep. Yes.
11. I'm trying to write it.
Yeah.
But that's a great idea. I don't know. I just meant I like this idea just because it might have a simple overriding umbrella, but a lot of complexity underneath it.
I love this Cisneros. I always remember when she talks about the teacher trying to pronounce her name Magdalena and how it sounded like it was like a tin in her mouth or something like that, and you could imagine, how it sounded in the classroom, but then also how, she felt as the teacher was trying to pronounce her name. So one of the things that Nicole and we discussed on the CL MOOC webinar is something that Greg brought up and then Sue referenced earlier, is providing a chance to onboard people. This came up at the LRA session where we discussed this a little bit, and I wanted to see where we all thought. I don't think we'll come up with the decision today, but one of the points that we brought up is at the beginning of each learning event, say to people, here is the what we want you to read, and then here is a make or a common activity, and then here's like a high low or high medium low or no tech low tech. How do we feel, because this was a lot of debate at the LRA session, how do we feel about giving people an opportunity and having them self-select as to what they think they can do? How does that affect modes? Stephanie, what do you think?
I don't know. That's why I asked the question. I'm wondering if we're trying to maybe do too much. And maybe it's enough to say that every effort is successful, no matter how complicated it is technologically, is sufficient rather than doing high tech and low tech. I don't know if we want modes in there, though we really don't have a no tech option because part of the modes that we're working with are digital.
Yeah, I like what we did last year is I just made up that maker menu, and then people could just pick from there, or we gave them, we always gave them a sample text, because I don't like leveling, because my low tech might be your high tech, or so that's why I did it more. I did the no tech because we had a lot of classroom teachers who just couldn't get online, so it was like, here's a, if you don't have the internet, here would be a good idea. But I like the idea of just the menus. I think our learning events are pretty formulaic, which is good. We just keep that same basic text structure going. Where it's, we had the guiding, we had the thing to read, the task, and then the guiding example for every single one. And then we said, oh, and if you're looking for ideas, you can do these other things. I do want to give them a choice in what modes, but I also think we should have. I'm leaning towards forcing them to stick in a mode for the first few events. Maybe the first one allows them to, it's pick yourself, but it's like, yeah, you're going to just record some audio for this one. You're going to do a video for this one. You're going to do an image remix for this one. Then it's once we get complicated in the second half, it's, hey, do what, here's the idea. Pick what mode best fits your story.
Yeah, just go play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at least with my work, I deconstructed the digital mentor text, and I originally had it exactly as the content was. So I had what the visuals were, what the oral was, what the written was, what the audio was, and that was too confusing for kids to handle all 4 modes at once. So I had to go, and obviously they were 5th graders, so maybe adults could handle all of them at once. But I sort of had to, that was in my pilot study, so I separated them out and sort of taught them one mode at a time until they were able to understand the affordances and constraints of each mode, and then I slowly added, like I did 2. So I had the visual and the oral, and then I had the visual and the oral and the written, and then the visual, oral, written, and audio finally at the end.
It would be kind of cool because if we just teaching people in the first learning event or the first 2 learning events, we want you to capture sound. Create a digital copy of sound and put it up online. There's a lot of teaching that goes into that. We want you to capture, an image and put it online, or video and put it up online. Just that is going to take a lot of time and a lot of scaffolding for us to get people up to that point. And then at the end we could say, this is how we play. So I mean, there's questions in the chat about theme. Maybe the theme still is identity, but this is the digital. You're telling a story of yourself looking across modes, and we just steal Hear My World, and then we're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, what did you think about us scaling people up? About when you looked at the learning events with your students, making sense of it and being able to use it to teach and guide your students?
One of the big differences that we have on this end is that we don't have anything in connection to literacy. I mean, the training, these future teachers trained to be teachers of English as a foreign language. So even though literacy is embedded in all this, it's not part of the formal curriculum. So this is something that even when we talk about different modes, they wouldn't know what we are talking about. But I think that if we are thinking about training teachers to understand this new digital world, they have to learn it somewhere. I mean, if you ask me, yes, we have to change the curriculum. Can we do it? It would take 5 years. So within what we have, I think that these 10 or 14 weeks can give us a very good option of give them a sense for what it means to start in what we call this 21st century world. Because I think that that is also the thing. There are a lot of labels and concepts. Teach students to be 21st century students and teachers and all that, but nobody tells you how or what do you do in order to do that. So I think it could be a good idea.
Well, that's the thing is with my students, you know, my juniors, my undergrads, the storyline, because with Walk My World we have the local and the global nodes. So at some point, most of us have to stand in front of human beings and explain, this is what this looks like. This is what you have to do. So my pre-service teachers, my juniors, my discussion with them would be, you are doing this because you need to know how to create, you know, to capture, create digital content and share it online. You need to know how to do that to teach. You know, and also I want you to play and create that digital learning network, that personal learning network, and that digital identity. But it's basically creating the content for the 5th graders, you know, and for the high school students. It's going to be a different story. You know, it's going to be something along the lines of, let's take some of what you're creating online and expand it. Let's think about how that affects your digital identity, you know, and how you create different pieces.
Can I jump in here?
Of course, that's what I was waiting
because
for.
I have been going nuts trying to find the text chat on my old iPad, and I don't think it is there anyway. One of the, I suppose, things I really like to explore transmedia, and a really wonderful sort of resource out there is a Inanimate Alice. Has any of you ever heard of Inanimate Alice before?
I'm writing about it right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I've used a lot of the episodes a couple of years ago. I used it with a kindergarten to year 6 school, that small school at Crossmaglen. But sort of listening to everybody speaking, I really love the idea of going into sound. That's really resonating. What Greg said about the all the learning events being very clear and I suppose to some degree explicit works really well, I think, because not too long ago I was a pre-service teacher. You know, most of you know that teaching is my second sort of degree or foray, but I can still remember how difficult, surprisingly, it really surprised me how hesitant a lot of pre-service teachers were when we did the Learning Technologies unit here at Southern Cross Uni. You know, they were just, about getting online and engaging with things. But I think for some of you, if you're working with pre-service teachers, you know, the thing is you've got some teachers here who are using it with their children in classrooms. So to a certain degree that validates the work, or it really gives some strength to this, what Walk My World is, or, you know, this sort of organic, fluid sort of project around you know, around great writing and how we interpret it. And the main focus for my stage 1 this term, next term, is different perspectives. That's the overarching literacy focus, is different perspectives from text, and that is huge. It's gives you a lot of scope. So in some ways this is going to be really wonderful. And I was just sort of thinking, I suppose I'm taking the long rant again, but I would learning kids really, for me, I've seen that, you know, we talk about it being meaningful and authentic. Well, when my kids, you know, get on Google Earth and they see all the different people involved in this project, they just love it. My kids have become global citizens living in their tiny little, you know, this mid-north coast town of Coffs Harbour. They have so much knowledge about the world now through
Uh-oh, you got bumped.
I don't know what happened.
So I have to get going. I have to go drop off my wife's car at a shop. And so I think today I thought was a pretty good one. It sounds like we kind of coalesced around a good theme or an idea. And our next planning meeting, we can kind of get into the ins and outs, tools, crap, like all the the technical stuff, possibly, and then the learning events, and then that could be like deciding who's going to divvy up and design the 10 learning events, so that we can have those ready ahead of time. Would be kind of upcoming tasks. Ian and I were talking a little bit about technology. We're going to move off of the Google Sites, thank God, finally, and probably just put up a WordPress site. And give everybody editing rights so that you can add pages, take away pages. But even if you can't use websites, that's okay. The learning events template will be in Google Docs, and you can just use that. And we can fill out the 10 events pretty quickly. But that's all of it on my end. We have that one document open that we're gonna keep going. And Sue, don't worry, I don't plan on using Slack for much of the planning anyways myself, just because it's not open. We can't document the data if we're on Slack. But we can in the Google Docs, and we can through these Hangouts. So I've been doing a lot of my work in those spots and places.
Now, Greg, is it possible to save all this chat information into a document or into a PDF, or do we copy and paste it? How does it work?
Copy and paste that, I guess. Like, there's no download the chat feature, right, Ian?
I'll just copy paste it into the Google Doc that we have.
Yeah. I was thinking about, because email planning is kind of hard, and it's hard to archive all of the emails. That's where I shared that to a Discourse form, and we use email basically a setup, but we could document and do all our emails through that, and then we have everything saved. And so I'm sharing a link here. We don't have to use it. I'm just saying we have it as an option. It's something for the team to discuss, and not something that we can decide on now. But we could just use this form. I set the category for Walk My World for keeping all of our stuff in one place, emails, documents, things like that. But for the users, we're going to keep it as simple as can be. I thought we had a pretty good workflow with the distributed classes, connecting through Twitter. We're thinking about, Ian and I talked about maybe starting a class stream, which for those people who don't want to be on Twitter, that you can set it, if we use with known, you can set it, each post, you can choose to be either public or private. So if you select private, it only goes to other Walk My World members, not out to the general world. So we want to think about giving people control of their privacy and their data, so that everything that they do is downloadable and not siloed just in Twitter and things like that. Something without Twitter, Sue says. Yeah, so it's just like, so it looked like, this is an example of one of my classes, and it uses it. Hold on.
So the thinking is that we would, at the beginning of last year, we said to people, look, send us your blog, send us your online space. If you don't have one, we'd help in that onboarding week, help them set up a blog or set up an online space, something that we could track what they're doing over time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I gotta go though. Drop me emails. I'm open to anything. What?
We just hijacked the whole discussion.
I said I have to go. These are the things I want to cover before I leave.
Kate was talking, and you're like, "Here's what I want to talk about." There you go.
Boom. Well, it's 4 o'clock. I'm a firm believer that meetings should not go more than an hour.
It's 3:56. We're
you guys
wrapping
4
up.
minutes. Go, Kate. You can talk.
Audio turned off. It wasn't Greg that time.
Yeah, that is true. The audio cut out. Thank you.
I like making fun of Greg. That wasn't his fault.
So before we got hijacked, there was a couple things in there that were interesting. I know that Julie was pushing back, and then a couple other people pushed back against Transmedia.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about some people that, when we talked about identity, there was a lot of people that came back and said, what do you mean by identity? What's the deal here? We could fold in Transmedia halfway through, but I like the storytelling part. Julie, do you want to talk more about Transmedia and possible pushback and stuff like that?
Yeah, it just, I am the I work with Julie Curo and Denise Johnson on the International Literacy Association's Technology Institute. And we talked about using the title Transmedia, and we thought, well, that might be too soon, so we moved it back to multiliteracies, and that was our original title, multiliteracy, transforming multiliteracies into, I don't know what our original title was. And ILA got back to us and said that they didn't feel like the majority of teachers would understand what multiliteracies was. They would think it would be like multicultural or something, I don't know. So we had to take that out, and we had to just simply use digital tools and texts. So that's just my only experience. I know that we've been talking about transmedia for a really long time at LRA, but just from ILA, they made us even change multiliteracies to digital tools and text. So.
Hey Julie, we use multiliteracies.
But I think it needs to start out. I agree that maybe, I know that Greg had said introducing it like at week 6 or week 9 or something. I think that, yeah, we can definitely introduce it, but I don't think we want to start with that.
Can I say something? There's something interesting, Julie, about what you said, in the sense that when people are not familiar with certain concepts, people shy away from them. But at the same time, you start listening and reading about them, or reading about them in blogs and all that, and all of a sudden is, okay, so are we talking about this or that? And I mean, it happened to me with the term multiliteracy and digital illiteracy. And I mean, at one point we can say that they are synonymous, and at one point they are very different. So I think that we probably can start kind of introducing concepts that can be considered family friends, probably not synonyms, but something so that people don't feel that they are alienated with concepts that they are not comfortable with, but at the same time that's a first step towards understanding what are the changes that literacy is going through.
Sorry, very quickly.
I think that we can try with this new concept. And also what it involves, playing with different formats and platforms and all that.
You should definitely continue because you got cut off earlier.
Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just said, Kate, you should definitely continue if you want to because you were cut off earlier.
Oh, that's okay, and yeah.
You want me to say something again? Because I can also, the sound is not very good now.
No, not you, Carolina. I was talking to Kate. You sounded like you had finished your statement.
Just maybe we need a little glossary on our, just with some of the terms. I mean, in Australia we're very familiar with multiliteracies, multimodal text. It's part of all our new curriculum. So that's for us. I understand it. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, cool. So, yeah, this again is the, different interpretations of the language that we're using. So, Kirsty was saying, there was a lot of difficulty in understanding what multiliteracies are. So, yeah, maybe we need to just have a little glossary or a little, clarifying some of the terms, because anybody who would go, yeah, if you'd go, anybody who, sorry,
okay.
Ian, I'll hang up.
No.
I mean, I'll mute myself.
Well, I think I agree with the idea about the glossary. Like maybe it's just the multiple modes and then the storytelling. Maybe it's just the storytelling, the story of us, and using those multiple modes to talk about it. But I agree. I like what Julie was saying. And others is that maybe it gets confusing as we use different terminology.
Maybe it's an
You mean like a MOOC?
Yeah, that really surprised me in Argentina, not knowing what a high five was. I thought that was universal, and you shouldn't. You know, I suppose it's the same as teaching. You never, you just never know. You know, there you go.
Well, that's what I was thinking about. Is when we built those learning events, we were very thoughtful about, Julie and Stephanie and Sue and Christy and we were, and I know that there was others involved, but we were battling between the different texts that we would put out there and the questions and what would resonate with different people and wouldn't make any sense to other cultures. And so that's one of the things that when Carolina and I were talking, that you never really do know what people will be able to connect with and what won't make any sense. And so that's a challenge.
But I also think that if we just, let's say, send people to do a MOOC on their own without any kind of explanation, then they may get lost. But if we are kind of guiding them, this is also a good alternative for us to give them the opportunity to explain to them something that may not be part of a regular class. So I wouldn't be too concerned about what is it that it's new to people, as long as we provide certain explanations or give examples or something that they can understand. Mm-hmm. It's a way of learning.
What do we think about putting these learning events out in other languages?
That would be good.
You got some money for that?
I got the Ringler Pet Transitional Partnership Fund.
Yeah, I think so. It's time for a grant. I said it at the beginning.
If it is Spanish, I mean.
We could start with English and Spanish first. I've got botched Spanish I can figure out. I don't know if I'd want to put it up online with my name on it, but I think we can help out.
Okay.
So I want to be, as Greg said, I want to be cognizant of people's times and not go too far over. I think we still have a lot of things to think about. I think we've got ideas percolating, and that's a good thing. We'll have another meeting at some point in the next couple days to a week, whenever, but at least start to think about ideas. We'll have another hangout so we can document this and keep it out there for people to think about. A lot of great ideas. One of the things that Greg was talking about at the end was the idea of being able to keep in touch. I put the idea of the Slack channel out there. I set up the Slack channel. Most of you are on it or soon will be on it. It was just a way for us to be able to chat with each other privately and ask questions and organize thoughts so we weren't bombarding people's email inboxes. We don't have to use Slack. I think one of the tools that works well, though, is the Google Docs being open so people can see it. I also think the videos are nice to be able to see. Slack is somewhat nice because I like it because it's private and closed, so if I say something stupid, which is often, it's just you all seeing it. But at least the nice thing about Slack is that we can put a question out there and let it sit for a couple days and have other people check it out. So it's open, but it's a little bit closed, so it's a little bit more private, which I think we need for this planning. But basically, I think it's a good first step. Comments or questions or thoughts as we wrap up?
I love it. It was really, very nice.
Yep. Thank you, Ian and everybody. Great ideas.
I like having Catalina here to give us a little perspective that we didn't get last year. It's like finally we've had Kate, and now we've got us in the States. We need to get somebody from Europe somewhere, or get somebody from Africa, and just make us really multicultural in terms of how we set it up. But I think that'd be really cool for the people taking it.
That would be great. Okay.
Well, that was the thing is, I'm like, if we're really walking our world and we want to have people connect, let's really figure out how to. I'm working on a project with Shira Hagerman, and we're trying to interview educators globally to see how they use technology. and I realized that we need like almost like local handlers. You know, if I were to visit another country, I need someone local that knows the area that can say, here's a school for you to work with. You know, maybe we need that with this. Bring on different people locally to say, okay, I will help you with this school in this country. You know, create a connection. And then we get a grant to travel around the world and go check it out.
That's good.
Yeah, what is that noise in the background? Are those doves or those?
Someone have a rooster?
I have a 5-year-old.
Yeah, that would do it.
I think it sounds like doves cooing back there, but they're really loud doves.
So what is everyone doing for the
That's
holidays?
actually my place.
What do you have going on there, Kate?
They're native turtle doves, and there's a whole family of them, and normally it's the kookaburras, but they've chased the kookaburras away at the moment, and yes, they're just, I've got the windows, it's 30 degrees Celsius here, and it's summer here as well, obviously, and it's, yeah, they're just outside the window, sorry. We have lorikeets, we have a lot of wild birds around our home, and it's lovely.
I love doves. We have mourning doves here in my backyard, and they're not quite as loud, but that cooing sound is just, makes me feel like I'm outside in the summertime.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's Australia. Our birds tend to be a little more. They're not as polite.
Is that a cultural thing?
Yeah, it probably is.
Are we? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are we onto something in terms of simplicity? And then I'll stop. But you know, just the word birds gets everybody excited across the globe. I mean, we could do something where there's just like a word of the week. So, you know, we could make this so simple. And it could be a screen. I mean, I'm just into KISS. You know, keep it simple, stupid. But just doesn't. I mean, if we were to just say, you know, birds and anything that here.
Walk my bird or something.
There's a little leash on it, a little collar. It would be kind of cool though to get to have somewhere in there like nature sounds where you live.
Yeah, well it is.
You've got the birds, you've got the ocean for some people. You've got creeks and streams and critters and.
Afternoon thunderstorms.
Yeah, that could actually be really fun.
Yeah.
That's one of the things Colin Harrison sent. He was off and on with Walk My World last year, and he said, well, can I show like what my breakfast looks like? You know, and how for different people breakfast looks like different things. So that, you know, that's how he connected with it. So it's interesting looking at everyday events and occurrences that we think are everyday to us that are not for other people. You know, I'm dealing with that sort of culture shock now as I'm, you know, trying to figure out what to do down here.
You just smile and say, y'all.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. I've been here 11 years now from California, so I've figured it out. A little bourbon, little y'all, little smile, you're good.
There you go, Sue. We'll have one more learning event. So that'll drive people up a wall. All right, well, it's good to see everybody. We will continue this. We'll talk on the Google Doc. We'll stay in touch. Hopefully everybody has a great next couple days and rests up and get those ideas percolating. I know that the Slack channel isn't a favorite for everybody, but I'll invite you, if I haven't already, shoot me a note just because I'm dealing with other mental stuff, like 5-year-olds and a 7-month-old. But basically, we'll grab you in there. And that's it.
Okay. Oh, Greg,
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Walk in Greg's world.
Merry Christmas.